Cheers, everyone. It's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and it's been a while because I've been on vacation a lot. And in the past week or so, I've caught up with a lot of my comics. So I have 21 comics to do in my countdown format, uh, ranked purely on my enjoyment when reading the comic books, rather than some grander critical point of view. So I will try to show you these 21 comics and give you a few thoughts as I go along. And I do have to say that I think every single one of them was a good comic up to a point, but not, beyond a certain point, not for me. So there was no real obvious duds or losers here, and there was about 5 or 6 comics that could have been a number one comic for me. So when I first started digging into this pile, I hit a whole bunch of ones that I really loved, and I thought, my God, am I going to have 20 comics that I love? But it wasn't quite like that. Excuse me. I visited Connecticut and Vermont and Los Angeles. Um, in Connecticut, I did briefly get to see Higgy Pop. In Los Angeles, I got to see Garage Geek, and he took me to some cool comic book shops. I went to in Connecticut. I went to Second Alarm Comics with Higgy and my daughter, and Higgy convinced me to pick up this new history of the DC universe, and I loved it. But I'm not counting it as a comic book. I think of it more as an illustrated book in a floppy format. Um, but it is illustrations that kind of flow together, matching the little bit of DC history in the captions. It's kind of a shame this is only going to be 4 issues. They are thicker issues, but it's a lot to cover, and Mark Waid is doing a great job of doing that. It's kind of interesting to think like which things they decided to include and which they didn't. I was a bit surprised, for instance, that they included The Endless from Neil Gaiman's Sandman comics. I don't see why those are needed in the DCU, but maybe they have enough connections to the DCU over the years that people have used them that it seemed important to put them in there. So anyway, really fun, not a comic book. Definitely a comic book. In at number 21 is a Sisterhood. And this is from the Hyde Street universe that's part of the Ghost Machine imprint, all of which I think of as being spearheaded by Jeff Johns. This is not by Jeff Johns, it's by Maytal Zuchit, an artist, Layla Lays. I don't even know how to pronounce the names. Colors by Alex Sinclair. The art is really nice. The colors are very in your face, I would say. Um, the story is a decent enough, or this is the beginning of the story. It's not complete in this issue. Decent enough setup for a horror story, but just one that doesn't speak to me, I guess, or feels too, I don't know, too familiar to me. Certain horror stories have the right vibe for you, the right angle, the right catch. This one is just kind of about friends and then a tragedy happens in a evil sorority, and revenge is gonna come, I assume. And perhaps, I mean, I've only read like the first issue of Hyde Street. Perhaps the mythos of Hyde Street will have a play in it, which may give the story more frisson as it goes along. I wouldn't completely say that I won't ever pick up another issue, but maybe if I get itchy fingers at the comic book store, which can happen, uh, I'm mildly interested, but I sort of feel like I know what's going to happen too. And then in at number 20, I put Absolute Flash. It's on my pull list. In terms of my pull list, it's kind of hanging on by a thread. I just don't care enough, maybe because not that much happens per issue. Um, and I really loved the first artist on this run, and the second artist, I guess he's fine. I think it's a he, um, Kaplan, but his art doesn't excite me as much as the first artist does. So when you add those two elements together, it's okay. There was something at something being revealed. I'm not quite sure what it was they revealed, but at the end of the comic, that makes me curious for next issue. So I'm sticking with it at least through next issue. This is, I believe, yeah, it's a $5 book, but it takes a few seconds to read, it seems. Am I getting an important message on my phone? No, just FedEx. Okay, in at number 19 is Battle Beast by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Otley and Annalisa Leone in the colors. I read it on Hoopla. I wasn't going to get Battle Beast, and then I've been following it on Hoopla because other people were so excited about it. I just wanted to see what the excitement was about. And I can understand the excitement about the endless action. Um, but to me, it feels too narrow and too kind of hollow. I mean, no one can beat Battle Beast. Eventually, someone will. So, but in the meantime, as he goes around slaughtering and being cruel and vicious and gory, it there's the excitement of a good fight scene, and then if you go too far, it just feels kind of sadistic, getting a little sadistic thrill out of it, I guess. Um, there are, a few other interesting elements. There's some alien who is on the ship with him and the ship's computer. So those kind of add some interesting elements. It's not horrible. I'll probably read another issue 4. I think this was issue 3. Yeah, issue 4 on Hoopla again. But and there's some cool images, and then there's other times where there's just so much blood that I kind of feel bored of it in a way. So I have mixed feelings about Battle Beast. In at number 18 was Dread the Hall. I thought it was Dread the Hall, like Deck the Halls, but it's Dread the Hall H. It's actually about a comic book convention, and it's a one shot of slightly interconnected stories, all of which take place in the dreaded Hall H, I guess. Um, and I wonder if this has more. They were funny horror stories with a light touch and really, really nice art for the most part. Um, so I just didn't connect to it a whole lot. Maybe the con setting didn't excite me as much as it might someone else. I definitely recommend it if you kind of like the idea of horror stories set at a con. Um, yeah, I guess there's no deep insights about cons here. It's all the pretty obvious kind of things you might think of. But it was a fun comic. Resurrection Man, and this is kind of theme for me. A lot of the books where the writing was kind of okay, the art was killer, and Resurrection Man just keeps me hooked with the art. I really like it. It's very different from most American comic book art. It's by Anand R.K., who I'm assuming is from India, but I don't know for sure. I think I've seen his work on one other comic, an indie comic he did with Ram V, and I think I like Ram V better on indie comics, and uh, I've said that before, I guess, and here the plot just seems to go around in circles and not really get very far. There's lots of really beautiful writing in the captions, but there's not a sense of storytelling at its best in comic book form. Um, it's beautiful illustrations, kind of cool stuff, but not it doesn't get me on a story level. So I'll still keep getting it, I think, because I'm looking at the pictures now as I'm talking, and I'm like, whoa, I really like that. So I should look into Anand RK more and find out what else he's done that might be available in the U.S. markets. I've really fixed mixed feelings about sort of ranking FML relatively low in this stack of 20. I put it at number 16. The first 4 issues of FML, I was thinking it was kind of like a mini comic book masterpiece, to be honest, with a unique, oh, and I love the wraparound cover, with a unique story with a point of view and kind of a looping style that jumps from character to character. But then after the first 4 issues, they went away for 4, maybe even 5 months. And now that they're back, I don't remember enough about all the individual characters. I remember the rough outline of things. Um, so that, and this issue seems to be looping through smaller character moments. It's almost like we're starting back up at almost a resting point in terms of the plot, if there is a plot, or is it transforming into more just an ongoing soap opera without a direction? I actually assumed from the way it was written at the beginning that it was a miniseries that would come to an end fairly quickly. But now with issue 5, I don't see an end coming very quickly, or if it does, it would be kind of anticlimactic. So I'm just not sure what to make of this issue. If I reread all 5 issues together, maybe I'd have an entirely different opinion. So I'm definitely sticking with FML to see where it goes, but I'm less excited as of issue 5. And then, so then I stuck, I kind of feel guilty sticking this above FML, but I guess FML was carrying a lot of weight of my expectations. And Archie Meets Jay and Silent Bob, which I put at number 15, carried basically very little expectations, except expecting to get some laughs. And um, Kevin Smith, the director of the Jay and Silent Bob's linked series of movies, and um, and the writer of this issue plugs in a lot of jokes. A lot of them don't land that well, and maybe they would have been different in a movie than in a comic. I don't know. They were enjoyable enough, and little inside kind of references both to movies and comics, which I thought was fun. But and I thought the art did a great job of portraying, of bringing the two worlds of Archie and the world of Clerks basically together. uh, and then the big moment didn't, it was all okay. It was fun, but it didn't wow me maybe as much as I thought it would, because I did hear someone else who was more wowed by it. But anyway, I really liked it. In at number 15. Uh, This Ends Tonight was another one. I put this in at 14, that rests more for me on the art. Love the Jay Lee and June Chung art. And it's great to see them doing interiors. Um, I think there could be a better vehicle for them, but I think it's just going to be 3 issues, and each issue is going to be about a different set of women, presumably all in Las Vegas. This takes place in Las Vegas on one of these characters' 21st birthday, and uh, people come out of the woodwork all over the place trying to kill them, and they manage to fight back. So there's a lot of killing, a lot of fighting. There is some background mythos on it that I was a little surprised they went there, but I'm not sure if I loved where they went with what the background was. But anyway, it was fine, but I don't want to spoil it. Um, and then it kind of ended on an ambiguous note. But the main thing, so maybe that'll be cleared up in future issues. The main thing is that something about the writing felt disconnected to me, herky jerky. It's written by 3 different people. Maybe that's a problem. Written by a committee. It's only copyright by the writers. Maybe part of the problem was there was a disconnect between the writers and the artists. So it just didn't. It felt like there were gaps or missing pieces to me. Um, but Jay Lee did a great job on the art. I mean, it looks fantastic. June Chung's colors are very bold and brave and cool. Okay, this is the ultimate one where the carried by the art. Planet Death, written by Derek Kolstad and Robert Venditti. Robert Venditti is a very reliable comic book writer, and he's done a lot for Valiant, which led to Bad Idea. I think he may have done stuff for Bad Idea, but you don't see much of Bad Idea's work until now. I think this is their very first comic that's available in all comic book shops instead of just limited spaces. Um, and it has so the Derek Kolstad is a writer or the writer of John Wick. I don't know which. Um, they claim him as the blockbuster screenwriter, creator, and writer of the internationally acclaimed, box office dominating motion picture franchise John Wick. Anyway, it has a very simple idea human soldiers are dropping down onto this alien planet and they need to destroy the weapon. What's the weapon? We don't know. Where are we? We don't know. What kind of future do they come from? We don't know anything except that they're kind of brainwashed soldiers, I guess. So they just repeat over and over again, destroy the weapon, return home. And the whole issue is just them fighting, dropping down, lovingly drawn, beautifully, heavy metal kind of rock and roll, European artwork looking, beautifully colored stuff where they drop down on the planet, they fight aliens. That's all we see. And for some reason, the human soldiers have battle armor and giant guns, and the aliens have no armor and battle axes and things like that. But the aliens utterly slaughter the humans. And I think there's just one left at the end of this issue. Now, the art is so good, it would be wonderful if, as this progresses, we learn a lot of other cool sci fi things about this world being created. I'm not, you can't tell from this first issue whether that's the case or not. But uh, I think I've seen art by Giorello before. What's Giorello? Tomas Giorello. I believe he did work on Exo Man of War that was written by Matt Kint. Am I right? Anyway, this is a new level for him. He's an artist to definitely watch. Also in the sci-fi vein was Ghost Pepper. I suppose this Planet Death and Battle Beast have a lot in common. Like, let's just spend most of our time showing a really cool battle. And there's a lot to be said for that, I guess. Anyway, Ghost Pepper tries a little more, but it's set either on a sci-fi planet or a future that hasn't happened yet where everything is different and most things, there's been some kind of it's kind of post-apocalyptic, but there's some kind of authority that rules over a loosely run society. Um, and I think we're following a woman with a traveling food truck who travels from village to village through this wasteland kind of world, which is fun. And then some other person who defies authority and is super strong and can rip giant robots in half. But beyond that, we don't, even though it's an extra thick issue, we don't learn very much. And there's a certain kind of anime style to the way all the characters are drawn, which isn't my favorite. But other than that, I thought the art was very cool. The color was really cool. So I'll probably pick up Ghost Pepper #2 to see where this is leading. I definitely like a fun sci-fi story. Probably here start. So Ghost Pepper I put in at #12. Crypto I'm going to put in at #11. In many ways, this is meatier than most of these others. Perhaps with the exception of FML. Most of these others that have come before, because it has a interesting character portrayal of Lex Luthor as maybe an 11-year-old, 12-year-old on the verge of choosing evil. I mean, he already wants to choose evil, but he's having a little trouble doing it. He's picked up this stray dog who just happens to be Crypto. No one knows it, and for some reason, Crypto doesn't have superpowers yet. That part kind of bothers me. I do like the corner box here with Crypto in it, biting chains, I think. But so I thought it was an interesting portrayal of the moral development of Lex Luthor, and I guess an experience for Crypto to go through, and some nice pictures of Crypto. I do think it was just that one beat of what's going on with Lex Luthor. And I think it will be more satisfying in a trade than in a single issue. Like I wanted a little more to be going on. I mean, I guess that's asking too much with modern comics sometimes to have more going on per issue. But I did. I just felt like there could have been more. But it was good. But what was there was good. And I think this overall, I have a lot of confidence in this Crypto story, other than the weird thing that Crypto's on Earth, but he has no superpowers. It would be an entirely different story, I suppose, if he did. Lex Luthor couldn't keep him as a pet and try to train him, or at least it would be very different. And then also with a nice corner box, the other DC comics don't seem to have them, but these two do. Maybe all the Superman related comics are going to get. I bring back the corner box. There's Supergirl breaking chains in the corner box. I really enjoyed this issue of Supergirl. This is I put this at number 10. This is Supergirl number 3, and I think writer artist Sophie Campbell has given us a certain amount of meat to chew on in these issues, so less of a complaint than the thinner story in some of the other comics. And I enjoy some of the playfulness. uh, I think her art style is something that some people might have trouble with. I didn't, and I enjoyed There's like a mini Titano that shoots beams out of his eyes into a crystal that then shoots at Supergirl from Les Lar. There's lots of cool little touches. The story still goes pretty quickly. Um, and I think the theme here is developing of maybe uh, girls who can be friends and work out their problems. At least I think we're heading that way. And maybe parents, at least some parents, because there's some good parents in here, but some other parents who can be real dicks. Again, my like with the crypto, I have one quibble in terms of my understanding of Superman mythos. I didn't think Kandorians could leave the bottled city of Kandor. And if they can just leave whenever they want, and their only thing keep holding them back is rules about leaving, that raises a lot of issues because you have potentially 100,000 superpowered beings that could leave that bottle. So that was number 10. Also very good at number 9 was Los Monstros. I've been liking this all along. It's just clicked with me. I like the artwork. I like the concept of I guess it's a Los Angeles. At first I thought it was like Las Vegas, a Los Angeles that is a separate city called Los Monstros just for monsters. And and then we get this Private Eye story. Actually, this is the Private Eye's ex-police partner, who's more of a Frankenstein type who has brain damage. But we get a lot of characters and an interesting city and a probably fairly standard Private Eye film noir kind of plot line, but it really works for me. So the in fact, there are clues that are sort of given quite easily as this goes along, and I think there's just one more issue. But I'm really enjoying it, and I hope maybe after, because Dark Horse loves miniseries, after a 4-issue miniseries, they'll bring Los Monstros back. That may be a faint hope, I suppose, with sales of indie comics. Conan, I put in number 8. This is Conan number 22, and hovering over the everything in the Conan color comic book is the fact that they're working their way up towards an event, and I just don't like that. So otherwise, Conan might be much higher for me. And really, this issue is it's a well done sort of barbarian gets thrown into the gladiator pit story, and I feel like it's kind of it was fairly fun, but also like I say, it's kind of a very familiar situation. Um, and it's kind of biding its time it as they place a few more elements into place for their larger story. Um, the art was pretty good. I always wish that the artist who does all the artwork that looks like John Buscema would be here, but this is somewhat Buscema-ish artwork by Fernando Daguino, and it's quite good. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm less excited about the Color Conan comic because of my anti-event point of view. Um, in at number 7 is a comic these days that I always look forward to, Savage Dragon. I I love Eric Larson's current art style, his inking style, his way of doing over the top action that definitely brings in a lot of Kirby, but it still feels like his own. And this issue asks the question, you might say, of what happens when a superpowered child decides to team up with another superhero and go on a mission with him, and it does not go well. And I guess The other character here is kind of like a San Francisco Batman. He's called the Bay Guardian, and as far as I can tell, he doesn't have superpowers. He's much more colorfully dressed than Superman. And the superpower child is Jackson Dragon, who would be the grandson of the original Savage Dragon, the son of Malcolm Dragon. I can't remember how he got sort of free. I guess his parents are busy doing other things. Anyway, cool, a little disturbing. There is a backup in this comic, and I really need to go back and maybe read a bunch of the backup strips. So here is, I think, a new magazine called Eerie, just spelled differently than the old Warren Eerie, made to look a lot like the old Warren Eerie, where horror comes home to roost. And it says the first fearsome issue. It says it's a June issue, but I've only seen it in comic book shops in July. I really enjoyed it. Most of the artwork is by Mike Hoffman, who is the publisher, a Von Hoffman publication. And I have read Mike Hoffman stuff years ago, just similar kind of Warren and EC based, EC esque self published comics that you could just get through. Oh, it was this print on demand website. I can't remember the name of it now. And I liked those, and I like this. And since I've recently, been reading those Warrant books like The Creeps and Vampirus Carmilla, I feel like these stories are slightly better than those. And a lot of the artwork is very Frazetta esque. Now, in some of the stories, the panels are so big that the artwork looks kind of like it needs more detail because if the page were more shrunk down or it was in a color comic, but most of the artwork doesn't have that problem. It's just one or two of the stories. Um, so, given I remember when I got these before, I'm like amazed that such good artwork existed in self-published comics. So it's great that they're getting this out into at least some comic book stores. So if you like that retro kind of horror, um, look for this Eerie magazine. And then an, we're definitely in the zone where these books could all be number one in it. Number five was Benjamin number two. Look, I think that's my favorite cover of this batch. And the art inside is good, and the story is a lot of fun and playing off of that Philip K. Dick type character, and also maybe a little bit of Kilgore Trout. And but there's some kind of so there's a they follow through with the revelation from the previous issue um, about who Benjamin, aka Philip K. Dick, really is, or what he really is. But then there's a new twist at the end of this issue that I don't quite understand. So I'm hoping the next issue, issue three, which they say is the last issue, will, I think they say it. They say the mind warping conclusion in comics coming in hot from Ben H. Winters and Leo Max. Um, I'm hoping that that will clarify what was going on in the last page or two here. Um, but it's so cool to see something like this being done in comics. I know Matt Kindt does similar things, but this is really clicking with me. And it's unapologetically for Philip K. Dick fans, I'd say. In at number four is Batman and Robin. Not the greatest cover, but great art on the inside. And I noticed that with the last Batman and Robin year one issue. Similarly, the cover was not the strongest point, at least for my taste, which was kind of surprising with Chris Samnee artwork, which has been so good. Wade and Samnee and colorist Lopez killing it every issue. The story's unfolding with lots of nice twists and um, lots of good moments for Batman and Robin and good moments for the villains and everything. The thought I had here, this is very much an homage or influenced by the famous Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, which was 4 issues. And this is 12 issues, which kind of makes sense for Year One. But what separates the two in some ways is the amount of space that Samney and Wade are able to use. So the story luxuriates longer, it simmers longer. And is that a good? I can't decide if that's good or bad. Like maybe the compression, that 4 issue compression of what Frank Miller had to work with, maybe that gave the story more intensity, and does 12 issues lessen the intensity, but it does give you more time to really enjoy the story, I guess. So I'm of two minds on that, but that was my main thought while reading this, because it otherwise it just continues to be excellent. um, yeah, loving everything about it. Even though I'm burnt out on Batman, I still end up reading Batman comics and thinking they're great. So, top three. Number three, Red Coat. Another fabulous wraparound cover. Um, I'm just thinking how cool and incredible a story this is as it builds up. Um, Now that I think, how many issues have we been into this Northerner storyline? But now that we're told at the end of the comic, Northerner is going to appear in Geiger, and I'm really looking forward to that. And even though I'm kind of Mr. Anti-events, and this kind of smacks of like eventually there'll be like a series or something where all the characters from Ghost Machine's unnamed universe, namely Redcoat and GI Robot, no, that's not what he's called, Junkyard Joe and Geiger, will all be together. And I guess the Northerner and probably some of the other characters. I love the evil cobbler here. Um, Anyway, this all builds so well. I have so much confidence in Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch here. Um, I just it it just gets richer with every issue. There is kind of a twist in which, we have time travel here, and Redcoat's meeting people from the future, and they're dropping hints, but not telling him too much. They're dropping hints, and is that changing him? Is he going to be different than the Redcoat we saw initially around 1900, in the earlier storylines? As this changed him, or will the changes sort of, will we see how those eventually fold in to other stories of Redcoat? Because Redcoat has jumped around in time from the American Revolution to, um, I think, around 1900, then to various times in American history, then in short stories, and then into this story taking place in the Civil War. So, anyway, intriguing. I have great confidence in that it will all be good. And I should always note this comes in with a great high quality cover, high quality paper, along with some really great mainstream comics art, all for $4, less than some of those, less than optimal Marvel and DC comics. Um, it costing $5. In at number two, we're taking everyone down with us. Another indie comic. This one I'm just loving too. It's issue 4, and all the pieces that they've created continue to move around in interesting ways with each other. The the daughter of this kind of supervillain slash Bond villain, the other villains and the games they're playing, what's going on with the secret agents who are trying to smash all of these villains, and what's up with this robot and everything. It just all works really well. It's all kind of funny, suspenseful, creative. You're not sure what's going to happen next, but so far everything that's happened next has worked well. So I'm really loving We're Taking Everyone Down with Us. Even though that title is such a mouthful, I tend to forget the name of this comic book. But I will never forget the name of this comic book. In at number one, The Savage Sword of Conan, utilizing some old watercolor sketch by Neil Adams. Looks great. One of my favorite all-time artists. I wish he had drawn more Conan. And then inside, a super treat, a like 90% of this comic, I think about a 50-page story, is written and drawn by Patrick Zurcher, who had been doing such a great job on Solomon Kane, and now he's showing he can do an awesome Conan story. This story, what's it called? Where's the title? Conan and Valeria, the Sunless Isle. Well, not the greatest title, but anyway, it begins where Red Nails, the great Robert E. Howard story, and that had a great adaptation by Barry Smith and um, Roy Thomas. Probably the best Barry Smith Conan art ever. If you haven't read Red Nails and you love Conan, I suggest you seek that out. But anyway, Zurcher does a great job of giving us just kind of a classic Conan type of story where Red Sonja and Conan are sent off on a mission by a king who would otherwise kill them, but will pardon them, um, to find a what you call it, I think it's a vessel, like a giant vase that will solve a drought. But they have to face monsters and lost civilizations and stuff along the way. And I just loved it. Zurcher's art was fantastic. He does have a weird way of drawing biceps. I think he needs lessons from Higgy Pop. But other than that, the art was stunning and the writing was really good. I love when there's a person who can do it all, and Patrick Zurcher can do it all. There's a short kind of throwaway story that's supposedly from the time of Kull, um, I by Fabian Nicienza and artist Sean Chen, and it just feels maybe like a space filler. They had like 8 more pages they needed to fill. There was two really nice pinups. I'd love more pinups and less instead of the filler stories at the end. Although I shouldn't say that because there have been some great stories at the ends of other issues. So really looking forward to the next issue of Savage Sword of Conan, and so I'm happy that there's. I think they're gonna do an issue or two that actually ties into their event, but mostly Savage Sword of Conan is standalone stories, and I'm loving that. And I'm loving when they find artists, which they mostly have been doing, who can handle the black and white kind of art of the classic Savage Sword of Conan type of art so well. So, lengthy video. For those of you who lasted the whole time, thank you very much. And I hope to be back soon. Okay.